Greetings from House Shrink. Want to say hello, another Sunday afternoon, and I'm going to be talking today about what I call freedom from the world of make-believe. And this is the kind of thing that a lot of people are in. They don't know that they're living a make-believe world. They make compromises with their truth, and then what happens is they find a false happiness because they compromise their truth. And I'll give you examples. Some people go into a situation that they don't like, a relationship, work, something that they know it's not good for them, but they rationalize that that is safety, or they rationalize that it's love. So then they begin to look for a happiness to sustain what they think they want, and it's a false happiness. It's not the real thing. So let's see what's happening here. Okay, a little bit of technical difficulty here. So we're getting back. So what's happening is that you begin to live a life based on what you think is safety, what you think is love, what you think is friendship, and then you don't realize what you're compromising. Sometimes you compromise your safety, your truth, your way of being yourself, because in a relationship that it's the world of make-believe, you may have to be a certain type of person rather than yourself. So any time that you compromise your truth, any time that you compromise who you really are, you go into that world of make-believe, and you'll have a false happiness. And I'll give you an example. In the Scandinavian countries, they always talk about that they're the happiest people in the world, because they have everything covered. They pay high taxes, and they have from cradle to grave. Schools is free, healthcare is free, and because of they're having all those things, they have a pseudo-happiness. When they're asked, "Are you happy?" "Oh yes, I'm very happy. I have everything." But yet they have a high suicide rate, and they have a drug and alcohol problem that's very serious. Why? Because they're living a pseudo-happiness, not a real happiness. They're not really having an opportunity to challenge themselves, to find what their truth is, because they're given everything, and they find a false safety, false love, false security, and it becomes false happiness. So the thing that happens is that the way that you can go into a life of empowerment, which is a life of living your truth, is that you have to have meaning, you have to have purpose, and you have to have a sense of service in your life. So that's what Aristotle said, and we know now that the immune system responds really well when you live those three truths: the meaning, purpose, and service. So sometimes you may have a life that you think you're very happy, but there's no purpose. You don't find any purpose in it. Or you find that there's really very little meaning, or that there's no service in what you do. And that creates a sense of melancholia, a sense of unhappiness, helplessness. And then in order to fix that, then you overdo something, like you buy things, or you go to obsessiveness with sex or porno or the internet, or alcohol, drugs, gambling, because it's a way to compensate for that false truth that you're believing. The false truth that you're living, which is the part of you that says, I'm compromising here. So the first thing to understand is that you have to create an archetype to get you out of that. And an archetype is a figure that comes either from mythology or from heroes in your life, people that know how to jump out of their own prison of nostalgia that they create. And it could be, in my case, I use the Spartans, because the Spartans were stoic, they were brave, they were courageous, and they knew how to do things. If you're a woman and you want to identify with the Amazonians, you can do that, or with one of the Greek goddesses, or whatever culture you come from. It could be Athena, it could be anyone that you want. And begin to see how that person would make decisions, how that person would get up in the morning without having to be motivated to go work out, or to do something, or to end the relationship is no longer healthy, or to begin a relationship that you think that you're not worthy of. So it's really taking a chance. It's a way of beginning to live your truth and giving people permission to not like it. And I don't mean a selfish, sociopathic truth. I don't mean that. Not a truth at the expense of others. A truth that has to do with your own compassion. It has to do with your own sense of service, meaning in life. What are you doing here? And why are you doing what you're doing? And I'll give you an example. Right now, anytime that there's a threat to your mortality, anytime that you're shaken either with an illness or with COVID-19, that you begin to question, well, wait a minute, I'm not here forever, or I could get sick. People begin to look at their meaning. And what has happened is that a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, have quit their jobs because they find no meaning, even though they don't have a job to go to. They quit their jobs because they're finding, I hate the work that I was doing. Now that I'm working from home, I'm happier, or this is not what I want to do. I want to do something else. And they go out and they take a step forward. They become Spartans, or they become Amazonians, or Athenians, or shoguns, depending on whatever culture you want to use. But the point is that you become a superhero in a very quiet sense. You don't have to do major things to be a superhero. A superhero is someone that actually takes responsibility for their life, that find meaning in what they do. They find some sort of service in their lives, and then that person will know how to thrive. Someone says here, I became a kind of shaman. Well, that is one of the superheroes, a shaman who does things to heal, to help other people, to go into their own personal world that can't be measured. I'm going to be doing some workshops on I did one actually last week, but I'll be doing some more on contemplative psychology, which is the part of you that's immeasurable. Is a part of you that you cannot measure with science, but you can experience, is the experienced world. Let's say, if you sat down with me for a significant amount of time, could you identify my character? Of course, that's what psychologists do. But by your character, it would be more, I would look at how you view the world, what kind of goggles you use to view the world. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I've been in private practice and hospital and outpatient and so forth. Now I'm doing lectures and I'm doing workshops and promoting my 2 books. I have 2 bestsellers, The Mind-Body Code and The Mind-Body Self. So yes, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, but I'm not doing therapy here. I'm doing teaching. You don't do therapy with people you don't know. That's unethical. So that's what it's about. So then what you do is you begin to identify between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is a perception that you're isolated from the world. Solitude is a perception that you're choosing to pull out for a while and get to know yourself, but you're not lonely in solitude. Actually, in solitude, you're very pleasant. You have a very good feeling of joy. Monks and nuns do that, and other people who are in some of the Eastern and Western religions, they choose to be in isolation, in prayer, or whatever they want to do, and they're very pleased with themselves. But loneliness is something that you believe that has been imposed on you, and one of the characters that you choose, the valiant characters, whether it's male or female, that character will teach you to identify solitude. I chose solitude. Loneliness is something that I think was laid on me, but you realize that loneliness is something you created. You could be lonely in a relationship. You could be lonely in a crowd. There's a book called The Lonely Crowd that talks about those things. So that's the thing to be aware of, that you have to first, am I at peace with myself? When I'm with myself, am I at peace, or am I uncomfortable? Am I in bad company? And if you're in bad company, then you're going to have to really create a better relationship with yourself. Otherwise, you're going to not feel happy with yourself, and you're going to look for props. How do you decipher between what someone says they are versus who they really are? That is the whole key. That's an excellent question. Freedom from the world of make-believe has to do with living your truth. For example, love is not a verb. Love is not I love you, I love you. Love is by enacting, by doing, by doing with other people that you love, doing things for them, for yourself, that is love. If somebody tells you, I'm very honest, and they lie to you all the time, they're living in the world of make-believe. or I love you very much, and all they do is criticize you. They're living in the world of make-believe that they assume that that's what love is. And by the way, when you ask them, do you love me? Oh, yes, I love you very much. And why do you hurt me so much? Oh, no, I'm not hurting you. I'm just trying to do things for your own good. When people say for your own good, be careful. So that's what happens. You begin to, from yourself, you begin to demand from yourself that your actions will speak for you, not your words. But also you begin to demand from the people that you choose to be part of your life to live their truth, not their words. That's very important. That's a great question. So you assess people by their actions, by what they do. If somebody slaps you, that's a felt meaning. It hurts. If somebody hugs you, that's a felt meaning. It feels good. So you have to see how difficult it is, because many of us live in that world of make-believe. We go by words, what people tell you. And some people are really good at telling you things and making you feel good, but they don't act it. I am very punctual, and they're never on time. Well, they're punctual in their head in the make-believe world, but they're not punctual in the enacted world. The enacted world is the world that you own, the world that you live, the world that you experience. What does a house shrink mean? That is kind of a fun title that I gave myself, because psychologists and psychiatrists in a fun way are called shrinks, because it comes from just in a kind of a fun way. I'll have to go see my shrink. And it comes from the Amazonian tribes, that some of them, they'll take their enemies, or they take people that after they die, and they shrink their heads with some chemicals that they use from the jungle, and the heads become very, very small, and they save them as a trophy. So that's where the word shrink comes from. So it's kind of a fun way of not taking yourself too seriously. So if you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you'll say, I'll go to my shrink, and everybody knows what you're talking about. So the house shrink is the shrink that I am on TikTok. But I'm not doing therapy. You don't do therapy with people that you don't know. I'm doing teaching, learning, lessons. Can people do good things because they're used to it, and it has nothing to do with because they love you? That's an excellent question. Today we have some really, really bright questions. You don't know if you're doing it because you believe that if you do it, people are going to love you, or if you do it for the thing in itself. And that's where Aristotle talked about eudaimonia, which is a life where you find pleasure in meaning, you find pleasure in purpose, and you find purpose in service. So you have to check that out. Am I loving someone because I'm afraid of not being loved back? Or am I loving someone because in the process of loving them, I'm loving myself, and I'm feeling that sense of belongingness and so forth? So those are really good questions. And the only way to check them out is by beginning to look at your truth. Beginning to, what is my truth? And only those archetypes can give you your truth. The Spartan, the Athenian, the Amazonian, whatever you want to be, those are archetypes that come from hundreds of thousands of years, that are actually, by the way, part of it is epigenetically transferred to you. Everyone has a hero within you. Everyone has a hero. You have to bring that hero. And heroes don't have to do humongous tasks of saving. Heroes live their truth. Very quiet, in a very serene way. They live their truth, and they're heroes on their journeys. That's what it's about. So it sounds like being a Christian. It sounds like being any kind of good person, whatever religion. Most religions will help you be an ethical person, but you don't have to be religious. It could be a secular, ethical person. I know a lot of atheists who are quite ethical. I know a lot of religious people who are not. So it depends on who you are. But I think that the characters that I'm talking about, these heroes that I'm talking about, will help you because they have a way of being that you can incorporate and bring into your life. Do psychologists believe in God? Some psychologists are atheists, some psychologists are not. A psychologist is a profession like anything else, and religion is something unrelated to that. So that is a choice that a person has to be religious or not, independent of whether they're psychologists or doctors or carpenters or whatever. But any of those questions are really good. Let's see. What should I do when I start to get nervous? About what? I lost that. If you're getting nervous, find out what's making you nervous, what is the context, and how did you learn to get nervous? God is not religion. No, God is a belief system. But let's stay away from religion and politics, because we're talking here about psychology, and about breaking the world of make-believe. At some point, maybe we can talk theology at some other point, but right now, let's just stay away from religion because it takes us away from the topic. So I hope that you will honor that. All right, if you just joined, I'm talking about freedom from the world of make-believe. And I would say that one of the things you could do is just follow my page so that you can become aware of when I do these presentations. What's a common sociological disorder that most people don't realize they have? Well, exactly what I'm talking about, the world of make-believe. The world that they're living, that they're thinking that they're getting the love, the safety, and the things that they do. And what they're doing is they're compromising their truth in order to get safety or to get love or to get whatever, money, whatever it is. So you have to know what your truth is before you know what the make-believe world is. But many people live in the make-believe world. In relationships that they've been together for years, very unhappy, but one will pretend that they have a partner, the other will pretend that they have safety, and they kind of compromise their truth. And you would ask them if they're happy, they say they're happy. But if they go deep, you will see that they're not happy. They're abusing something, they're overweight, or they're doing something that's a way of compensating for the emptiness of not living your truth. So that's one way to look at it. Is it really necessary to distance yourself from your thoughts? No, because you can't get away from your thoughts. Even in meditation, you don't get away from your thoughts. You just don't let your thoughts rule you. Your thoughts can come and go, your emotions can come and go. And this is why contemplative techniques are really good, because you sit quietly and you let the theater pass you. You don't try to get rid of it. You just, a thought comes in, let it pass. Another thought comes in, a feeling comes in, you let it pass. After a while, your body will go into a contemplative state and you'll begin to feel a serenity. But it happens by itself because you're observing the observation. You're not guiding the observation. So who we are as adults is because of our childhood. Well, it's because of what we learn on our journey, including today, yesterday. As adults, we continue to learn. Developmental psychology doesn't stop in after the first 6 years or adolescence. It goes on till the end of your life. So always ask, where did I learn this? How did I learn to be unhappy? How did I learn to be afraid of love? How did I learn to look for security in the wrong places? You learned it by observing other people. Even if your parents or other people said, don't lie, be honest, and then they lie. So what you learn is what you see, not what they tell you. And later, without you knowing it, you'll say, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to lie. And you find yourself that you surround yourself with liars, and you start lying yourself because of the learning. But so it's our experiences. The good news is that we can change anything that we learned. Anything that was learned, I'll repeat it because it's very important, can be unlearned. There are methods, of course, and you don't do it intellectually. You don't say, I'm going to stop lying, or I'm going to stop cocaine. Oh, okay, good. I'm not going to be depressed. It doesn't work like that. That's just intellectual gymnastics. It requires experiencing and going into levels of understanding yourself and looking at what is the make-believe world that you created. So the life of empowerment happens in the terrains of meaning, service, and purpose. That's how you begin to explore that. Cultivate meaning in your life, purpose, and you will see, as well as service, and you will see who you are. You don't know who you are until you actually live it rather than talk it. So it's very important to enact these archetypes that I'm talking about. And don't wait for motivation. So rather than waiting for motivation to act, enact archetypes. If you're going to start working out, don't wait for the right conditions or to motivate yourself or to reward yourself. You get up and you do it mechanically. I'm jumping in and I'm doing it. I don't care what time it is. I do it. And that kind of jumping in is what the heroes do. The Spartans and the Athenians and the Amazonians and the Shoguns, that's what they do. They don't think about it. Some psychological traits are hard to detect. Well, it depends. A lot of things can change. This is why psychology is moving a bit away from personality, because personality looks at traits and states, and it has to be contextual and cultural. What are your thoughts on overcoming dissociation? Well, dissociation, of course, you need professional help. But in addition to the professional help, you have learned to dissociate for some reason. It has some function at some point, and it doesn't have a function anymore. I've worked, for example, with many, many people that have been abused sexually, emotionally, and dissociation was a way of protecting themselves from the pain of what was going on in their lives. Some people can actually see themselves come out of their bodies and project themselves out of the body. It's a protection mechanism. But then later, you don't need that anymore. So your dissociation was a way that helped you, but it's not functioning and serving you well anymore. So there are many techniques about that, but I think that you should see a professional. And then in addition to that, read my books, The Mind-Body Code, The Mind-Body Self. And there's a lot of information there about learning how to become who you are without the props and without the dysfunctional methods like, for example, like dissociation. Believe that one deserves nothing is hard to rewrite because you were taught. That's what you were taught. You were taught somehow that you're not worthy of good things. And in fact, if you're taught that, when good things start happening, you begin to sabotage them. And you begin to, in a not sometimes aware state, you begin to feel uncomfortable when things are going really well. So what you do is you go back and you learn and go back where you picked it up. Where did I pick this up? Who told me that I was unworthy? Or who showed me that I was unworthy? Or who am I competing with that makes me unworthy? All of those are cues to, again, look at what you need to do to free yourself from the world of make-believe. The world of make-believe that you created is, I'm unworthy. That's the world of make-believe that you created. So you buy it. But everyone is worthy by their action. So you want to know if you're worthy? Start doing worthy things. Okay, I did this. This is worthy. Well, that's evidence. And your brain begins to pick up the type of neural maps and belief systems that will allow you then to counter that concept of not believing that you're worth it. Okay, thank you. And again, let's stay away from religion because this is not about religion. Religion is wonderful in its right place, but not here. So please honor that and ask questions related to how to free yourself from the world of make-believe. That's what it's all about. Because if not, if you just joined us, what happens? You pay a price for false safety and for misunderstood love. And the price that you pay is that excess of things to compensate for a truth that's not real. Is one able to overcome obsessive compulsive disorder? Yes, it is. You can learn to deal with it. Obsessive compulsive behavior, like any disorder, had an initial function to reduce anxiety, or because you had some neuropsychological propensity. It can be unlearned. One of the best ways to unlearn it is to use Tai Chi, contemplative psychology. And by the way, it's really important to understand what obsessive compulsive disorder is. Obsession is an intruding thought that you have difficulty getting rid of. Compulsion is an intruding behavior that you have difficulty getting rid of. So obsessive thoughts, compulsive behavior come together. That's what they call obsessive compulsive disorder. So it can be treated and it can be overcome. Yes. Again, I'm going to ask you to leave religion out, or I'm going to have to block you, because this is not about religion. This is not an agenda to bring in your own agendas. This is about learning something and not taking the time of other people about freedom from what I call the world of make-believe. So if you're religious, it's wonderful, but don't bring it here now because this is the wrong subject. No religion and no politics. All right. So a lot of people, I'm not the typical psychologist because I don't treat people as if there's some kind of dummies who are there to be told what to do. I interact with people. I go back developmentally to see what they learn. And if they do something that's wrong, I ask them, that had a function, initially had a function. Now it doesn't have a function anymore, so let's replace it. So it's a humanistic psychology, but it's based on good neuroscience, good psychoneuroimmunology, good cultural anthropology, and I call it biocognitive science. So, no, you don't have to stop spreading the word of God. What happens is they don't do it in the wrong places. We're not doing religion here. You can do it somewhere else, and it's wonderful. You can do it with people that want to hear it. Here, they want to hear psychology. Religion is wonderful and in its right place, just like psychology is wonderful and in its right place. You don't go to church to talk psychology. You go to church to commune with God or religion. So, okay, you just keep going, so I'm just going to have to ignore you. Okay, now, here's what's going on. If you just join, freedom from the world of make-believe is what we're doing. Finding out what is your pseudo-happiness. What are you living that is not really true, and you believing that it's true in a way that gives you a kind of happiness, but it's not real, because you notice that you're overeating or undereating, or you're doing something excessively or not doing enough of something. It's out of balance. That's when you're going to know that what you're doing is you're overcompensating for not living your own truth. When you begin to live your own truth, all of a sudden you have a sense of serenity, you feel grounded, and some people are not going to like it. So remember that. Some people are not going to like it because all of a sudden now you're showing them who you are, and they may not like who you are. Before you were putting up with them and you were acquiescing and compromising, and now you say, no, wait a minute, I have limits. And one of the most important things that you do to get out of the world of make-believe is to begin to set limits with people and give them permission to not like it. You give them permission to not like it, and then that's okay. The world doesn't come to an end. So if you just join, try to follow my work. And let me see. I'm trying to block someone here who's getting a little bit annoying, but I'll do that later. Anyway, we'll just annoy it and avoid it. Anyway, religion could be obsessive. Speaking of obsessive compulsive behavior, religion could be obsessive if that's all you think about. And if you try to impose it on people whether they want it or not, that's an obsession. So work on that and be more religious with yourself before trying to sell it to everybody, especially when people tell you that they don't want to hear it. So anyway, if you just joined, this is House Shrink, Dr. Mario Martinez. I'm a clinical psychologist, and here I am doing some lessons on how to deal with some things about the world that have to do with false beliefs and things that create problems here. The psychologists or therapists ever need, of course, if we're human beings, sometimes we need a colleague to work with to help us to look at things that we're not looking at objectively. Yeah, so we have methods and everything, but you also, like if you're a doctor, you're not going to treat yourself. You have an infection, you go to another doctor and you get the antibiotics. So yeah, so you have to be human and you have to feel imperfect, and that's the best way to teach. Okay, make sure that you follow my page, because that way I can reach out to more of you. Let's see. Next time I'm going to have to learn how to block here so I can block people who are just annoying. Okay, getting back to any questions. Do you have any questions that you want to ask me? If they're related to what I'm talking about, I'll try to answer them for you. If not, I'll be leaving in a few minutes, and hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. My comments are coming through. Want to try now and see what happens? Greg? Okay. Click on their name and manage block. Okay. I will do that next time. This is great. Sometimes we have clowns, people who just come in and they disrupt. Okay, let's see. Let me try this right now and see how I can block this person. Not be able to do it yet. Okay, anyway. Let me get back here and pay attention, because it's really wasting a lot of my time. Okay, getting back to what I was talking about, freedom from the world of make-believe. The world of make-believe could be make-believe that you have good love, make-believe that you have safety, that you have abundance, and it could be things that you're doing. And one of the tricks to figure out if you're in make-believe is that you're compromising something for safety or for love. You're compromising something that maybe could be a relationship, it could be work, it could be anything. there's some other question. Oh, I lost that one. I was going to try to answer that question. And let me see if, I wish I could see what I could do with this. It's just really annoying me that this person doesn't get it. Obsessed with religion. So let me see. Try to stop this. There we go. Okay, great. Now I can get back here, and hopefully that person will be gone. I don't know if you're. I just got my COVID shot, and now I have tapeworms. If you're kidding around, okay, it's funny. If you're not kidding around, then COVID has nothing to do with tapeworms. It only gives you an immunity to the virus itself. So anyway, moderators. I need a moderator. That's right. Yeah, because the moderators could be stopping all these foolish things. But anyway, it makes it more realistic here, and I just go out and I'm not that technically minded, so I just finally found out how to block that person, and so it's pretty good. But those of you who are here and are asking legitimate questions, I'll take the time to answer them for you if I can, because you are the people that I want to provide service for, lessons and teachings and so forth. Okay, now I would love to be your moderator. Well, maybe next time we could do that, because I really need a moderator. It just gets out of hand, either with the buffoons or the obsessively religious. So and there's nothing wrong with religion. There's nothing wrong with most things if they're done with a sense of respect for other people. When you impose it on other people, then it's not that good. So freedom from make-believe is a pseudo-happiness of compromising your truth. That's what happens. Pseudo-happiness when you compromise your truth. And when you compromise your truth, you don't realize that you're doing this, but you compensate with other things. You're in a relationship and you notice you're compromising who you really are. You have to be something else. So in order to compensate for that, you do things that are excessive. You overeat, or you look for other relationships, or you do something instead of stopping, finding out what your limits are, and see if that person really wants you once you let them know who you really are. That's one way to get out of the make-believe world. Okay, so we'll see about a moderator. That's a good idea. But right now, I can't do it because I'm in the middle of this. But thank you for suggesting it, and I'll check with you later about that. Okay. So, any other questions? Being true to self, exactly. And how do you know if you're true to yourself? You'll know because there's an internal sensing that you have, an internal way of validating. So if, for example, you're in a relationship and that person wants you to be a clown all the time, wants you to make them laugh, and after a while you say to yourself, I'm more than that. I want some seriousness here, or I want something that has more substance. But in order for me to stay in that relationship, I have to play the clown archetype. Well, that's one way to check out the truth. And then you talk to that person and say, look, I'm not a clown. I can be funny and I can make you laugh every once in a while, but there's a lot more to me. And if that person doesn't want more than the clown, then you either become the clown and live the pseudo-happiness, or get the hell out and find someone that doesn't want a clown. That's it. It's not real difficult, but it requires courage. Because to get out of the world of the make-believe, you require courage. Courage to be yourself, because that's all there is. I mean, there's only one life. And if you don't live your life of truth, then what you're doing is you're just playing head games with yourself. And after a while, it gets really, really old. So, all right, more questions. We have some really good people here, some really intelligent people. I had 2 deaths of family members. Yes, that's terrible. One thing you can do about the loss of someone dear, friend or family, is you do a meditation and you begin to celebrate having known that person. You begin to celebrate having known that person, and you begin to bring memories of how that person had meaning for you and apply what that person taught you, and that person continues to live in your heart and in your head. So that's one way to do it. Okay. Hallucinations and make-believe. That's a great question. Let me clarify that. If you're psychotic, someone who's out of touch with conventional reality, you don't know that you're in the world of make-believe. If you think you're a Joan of Arc, you really believe that you're Joan of Arc. In make-believe of people who are not psychotic, as the moment that you begin to look at yourself, you can discern the difference between make-believe and real life. Psychotics cannot. Psychotics mostly need medication to help them come out of the delusion that they're in, or the hallucination, whether it's physical, whether it's visual, auditory, whatever it is. So that's a good question. So the world of make-believe here is for people who are not psychotic and who can test their reality. A psychotic person, by definition, cannot test their reality because they're living a delusional reality with hallucinations or not. Okay, so that's a great question. Yeah, celebrating the people. When my mother passed away, the first thing that I did is I celebrated at her favorite restaurant, having known her. And my son and my daughter with me, and we celebrated. It doesn't mean that you don't mourn. You have to mourn, but not in a morbid way. You mourn in a way that celebrates them, that actually makes them feel at the spiritual level or whatever, or makes you feel that they weren't here just for nothing. They were here, they had a purpose, and you take on that purpose and you begin to live the truth that they taught you. That's another way of mourning. The topic today is freedom from the world of make-believe. Learning to identify your own truth, learning to have the courage to let other people know what your truth is, and giving them permission to not like it. And by truth, I don't mean selfish truth. I mean a truth that allows compassion for yourself and for others. I believe psychology and therapists rarely have conflicts with people. Well, it depends on the psychology. There's some idiots who are psychologists, and there's some brilliant people who are psychologists, like anything else. Have a bright carpenter or a dumb carpenter. And some people go into psychology because they have problems that they don't deal with. So that's very true. Other people go into psychology because they love understanding the mind and the body, and they love understanding the development of the individual, and they love to service. They love to help other people. I get very excited when I'm able to help someone relieve their own pain. I find that to be extremely exciting for me. So those are some of the examples. How do I get over a breakup? First, the intellectual part and then the experiential part. A breakup. Why would you want to be with someone that doesn't want to be with you? Or why would you want to be with someone that you don't want to be with? That's the intellectual, but that's not enough. So what you do is you do a meditation, relax, go into a contemplative state, and ask yourself, instead of putting my energy, my thoughts, my focus on what I call the prison of nostalgia, that's what happens when you're in unrequited love, I'm going to put my efforts, and again, my Spartan or Amazonian, into having faith on my journey. Faith on your journey doesn't mean religious. It means that there is a purpose in your life, and have faith in that purpose that you're creating, and it'll shift from the sense of melancholia and the sense of, and by the way, melancholia is not used anymore in psychology, but I think it's a good word, so I use it. But also the nostalgia. Oh, I remember when I did that. You go into nostalgia, or you go into what the Greeks called the prison of nostalgia. So you shift and you put your focus on solitude, getting to know yourself again, and on faith on your journey. Those two things, do it mechanically, and you'll see that it'll start clearing out. But I can't do therapy here. I'm just giving you some things, and if you need therapy, of course, you can get therapy. What are my books about? About mind-body psychology, how the mind and the body communicate with each other, and they both have been very good. They're both bestsellers, and the mind-body code and the mind-body self. And I emphasize how important it is to understand your culture, because your biology will respond to your culture. The brain is culture, and the immune system is culture. It learns from the language. If you shame somebody, for example, that's a word. If I say you're stupid and you shame that person, you begin to secrete molecules of inflammation, as if there's some kind of pathogen out there. So the brain has learned to interpret words as symbols, and the immune, nervous, and endocrine system respond to those symbols as if they were actually physical. So that's very important. So start following the work, and then like and follow. And I'll be doing more of these. I didn't do them for a while because I was traveling. Actually, I went to Poland to do some work over there. The pressure is strong, and it's in how can we create new beliefs? By living them. You don't create them in your head. You live them, and then they. So if you have a new belief, again, you go find a hero, a Spartan, a Shogun, a woman would be an Amazonian, Athena, heroes that are powerful. And you have that capacity within you. Live that out and stop waiting for motivation, stop waiting for reinforcements, and jump in and do it. Are a lot of gurus deluded? Some are and some not. Some gurus are deluded and they say that they don't have any ego, but you have to call them your exalted self and that kind of thing. So they still have egos. And Shogun Trungpa, who was a Tibetan Lama, talked about that. He called it spiritual materialism. And what he meant by that is that I'm more spiritual than you, that's ego. I'm more evolved than you, that's ego. So if you have someone who thinks if they think they're evolved, they're not gurus. They just have egos that are going into the spiritual. So thank you for joining. So are you kind of talking about co-occurring disorders? No, not. I'm talking about there is a co-authoring. There is a co-learning of disorders. Not all, but most of them are just learned. And you learn what you watch, and other people support it for you. So one of the things you need to do, that question brought up a really good point here, is that if you are living a life of make-believe, you can bet that you're going to have co-authors that support that make-believe. So the moment that you decide you no longer want to live like a clown, you no longer want to live like someone who doesn't deserve anything, the co-authors there are not going to like it because they're playing out the game without knowing it. And that's when you begin to set limits and give the co-authors permission to not like it. So it's a really good question. What other questions do you have here? Let's see. Let me take a deep breath here. I'm thinking I should do that too. I hate reading. I'm learning more by listening. Well, because everyone has what's called a salient input neuropsychologically. Some people learn better by reading, other people by auditory, other people by touch. So if you don't like reading, get audiobooks. I have audiobooks that I read when I go on long trips, and they're wonderful because you're just listening. So it depends on how your brain takes the information best. And there's no better way, or I'm more visual than auditory, but I also like audiobooks. So it's nice. How can we better communicate with therapists and psychologists? By being truthful with them and by questioning them when you don't agree. But don't question out of thin air. Oh, I don't agree with what you're saying. Well, what is your evidence? Because you know yourself, the internal self, better than anybody else. Doctors know your physiology better. Psychologists know the psychology better, but nobody knows you like you know yourself. So it's a combination of co-authoring wellness, what a good psychologist or what a good psychiatrist or doctor does. I learn well when I explain things to another. That's really good because what you're doing neuropsychologically is you're practicing it by explaining it, you're giving it a language. In medical school, they have a little technique that they say, if you want to learn something, you watch one, you do one, and you teach one. And neuropsychologically, that works really well because as you're teaching it, you're basically trying to explain it to yourself in a simple, clear way. So that's a really good point here. What if I don't want to lose my medicine? I'm truthful to my psychiatrist. Always be truthful and let them, that's what's called informed consent. Let's say you're with a doctor and the doctor says, I think you should take this medication, and say, why? Well, for this and this, and then you can ask, well, is it possible if we can do what's called a a medication holiday, and could we try it for a few weeks and see what happens? Of course, the doctor has to decide, because sometimes you have to be weaned off medication. So always with professional help. And some psychiatrists or some doctors will say, yeah, let's try it and see what happens. Others will say, no, that's how it is. And you can always go to somebody else, or you can try to negotiate with them. Because remember, it's your body, but they know biochemistry and everything, but you have to be aware that what you're putting into your body is your responsibility. So it's always good to communicate with your professionals, and if they're open to giving you other alternatives. So what other questions do you have? I'm about ready to stop here because I need to get going, but I really enjoyed today. There's been a lot of interesting people here. If it's a controlled substance, it's even difficult. Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, why were you put on that medicine? Ask your psychiatrist if there are alternatives. And you don't go just for medication. You need help. You need psychotherapy too, not just medication. You're not just a biochemical robot. You need medication in some cases, but you also need ways to learn what to do to enhance the medication. So that's the deal there. So anyway, I'm about ready to go. So if there are any other brilliant questions here, and they're all brilliant, let me know and I'll try to answer them for you. And remember, make sure that you follow my page and like it. And also go to YouTube, my YouTube channel, Dr. Mario Martinez, because I have over 300 videos, obviously free, of all kinds of information of the things that I talk about, my books and so forth. So there's a lot you can get. So much love to all of you. I enjoyed you being here. Make sure you follow. And I'll be talking about other subjects besides the freedom from the world of make-believe. So find your hero and begin to live your hero. Enjoy and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.